The Battle of Waterloo was fought on June 18, 1815, near the village of Waterloo in present-day Belgium. It was the last major battle of the Napoleonic Wars, and one of the most decisive battles in European history. The French army, under the command of Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, was on the offensive, attempting to defeat the Seventh Coalition of European powers that had united against him. The coalition was led by the Duke of Wellington, who commanded the British and Allied forces. The battle began early in the morning, as the French launched an attack on the Allied lines. The first clash came at the village of Hougoumont, where a small group of British soldiers had taken up positions in a fortified farmstead. The French launched several assaults on the position, but the British held their ground, inflicting heavy casualties on the attackers. Meanwhile, the French cavalry charged towards the British lines. The British responded by forming squares, a defensive formation in which soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder with bayonets extended. The squares were impervious to cavalry charges, and the French cavalry was repulsed with heavy losses. As the morning wore on, the French launched attacks on several other Allied positions, including La Haye-Sainte, a farmstead that was defended by soldiers from the King's German Legion. The French eventually captured the position, but at a heavy cost in men and ammunition. By midday, the French had made some gains, but they had not yet broken through the Allied lines. Napoleon ordered a massed artillery barrage, hoping to soften up the British positions before launching a final assault. But the barrage had little effect, as the British and their allies were sheltered behind the ridge on which they were positioned. In the early afternoon, Napoleon launched a major attack on the Allied center, hoping to break through and divide the Allied army. The attack was spearheaded by the Imperial Guard, Napoleon's elite troops. The Guard advanced towards the Allied lines in perfect formation, dressed in their distinctive blue uniforms and bearskin hats. But the British and their allies held their ground, and the attack was repulsed with heavy losses. As the French assault on the center faltered, the Prussian army, led by General Blücher, arrived on the scene. The Prussians had been delayed by a skirmish with the French army earlier in the day, but now they were advancing towards the battlefield in force. The arrival of the Prussians was a turning point in the battle, as it threatened to cut off the French retreat. With the Prussians approaching, the French launched a last-ditch assault on the Allied lines. The attack was aimed at the weakened British center, where the defenders were exhausted and low on ammunition. The French broke through the lines and captured several artillery pieces, but they were unable to hold the position. The battle ended in a rout for the French, as the Allied armies pursued them across the battlefield. Thousands of French soldiers were killed or captured, and Napoleon himself narrowly escaped capture. The Battle of Waterloo was a decisive victory for the Allied powers, and it marked the end of Napoleon's reign as Emperor of France. In the aftermath of the battle, tens of thousands of dead and wounded soldiers lay scattered across the fields of Waterloo. The battle was a brutal reminder of the cost of war, and a testament to the sacrifices made by those who fought on both sides. The battle also had far-reaching consequences for Europe, as it paved the way for a new era of peace and stability on the continent.